Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our public information meeting tonight on the Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant and their hazardous waste license renewal and application. Glad to see several people joining us. Looks like got about 15 people logged in right now, and I'm sure we'll get several more continue to log in as we get started. My name is Jim Ostrowski, and I work in the Environmental Support Division here at Eagle. I'm going to serve as one of the moderators as we go through questions and help direct things a little bit. A couple of guidelines or housekeeping information just to let you know. You noticed this already. The lines are all muted, means you can hear us, but we can't hear you at the moment. Tonight, if you have questions, that's what we're here for. You can type them into the question box, the Q&A box that you have in your Zoom toolbar. When we get to the point to ask questions, you can also click the raise hand icon. And if you feel comfortable, click that raise hand icon and I will call your name and you'll get unmuted and you'll be able to ask your question to our panelists that are with us tonight. We are recording this meeting. You can probably see that up on your screen. And we'll post the recording link up on YouTube in the next couple of days. So you'll be able to find that on our YouTube channel in case you want to watch it again or you want to pass it along to somebody else. All right, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kimberly Tyson, and she's going to run through some welcoming remarks. And I think we're going to have Christine, if you want to share your slides, you can do that at this point. So go ahead, Christine, or go ahead and Kimberly.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us for an update on the license application review for the Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant in Belleville, Michigan. My name is Kimberly Tyson, and I work out of our Lansing headquarters office, and I supervise Eagle staff who will review the application and recommend it for approval or denial. Joining me this evening is Christine Matlock, Christine. Okay. Joe Rogers.
Hi, I'm a geologist.
Jim Ferrito.
Hey, everyone.
Sean Shields.
Good evening.
Michael Bussey.
Yeah, hi. I'm a hazardous waste inspector assigned to this facility.
Nazareth Sandoval.
Good evening.
And we have Al Taylor.
Good evening. I'm the Hazardous Waste Section Manager for Eagle. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Okay, and those are the people that's on our panel, but we also have other Eagle staff in the, I guess, in the audience as well, and they, may help us out later with some questions that you may have. All right, so with that, again, thank you for joining us, and I'll turn it over to Christine to begin the presentation.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. People can see us. There we go. So as Kimberly previously mentioned, my name is Christine Matlock. I am the permit engineer for a Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant. I'll also be calling it Michigan Disposal tonight. It's a little bit shorter. Tonight is really an informational meeting just to give you guys an opportunity to learn about Eagle's licensing process and the renewal application submitted by Michigan Disposal and their proposed expansion. Afterwards, we'll open up the floor for questions. So what is our licensing process? In the state of Michigan, all companies that store, treat, or dispose of hazardous waste are required to obtain an operating license from Eagle. This requires the company to submit an application even if they are currently operating with an approved license. So the application must include information about the operations and how they're going to comply with hazardous waste laws. After the application has been submitted to Eagle, we conduct two different reviews, a completeness and a technical review. Think of it as the completeness review as just a way for us to make sure that all the information that needs to be included in the application is actually there. And then also the technical review is more of a quality check of that information. So after Eagle finishes the completeness review, a meeting like this one tonight is held to tell the public about what's included in the application and to answer any of your questions. So if you have them, please let us know. We want to hear from you. After Eagle finishes the technical review, another meeting will be held to tell the public more about the technical aspects of the proposal and the renewal application. And then based on the outcome of the technical review and any public comments or concerns that we take into account, Eagle may propose to issue a license or deny the application. And if the application meets all the technical and legal requirements, Eagle will create a draft license, which we'll put out to the public for comment through our public comment period. So after the public comment period, Eagle reviews all the public comments and then we'll make a final decision at that point. So it's important to know that we have not made a decision at this point. We don't know if we're going to issue an approval or deny it. We don't know yet. So what is the application that we're talking about today? Eagle received an application from Michigan Disposal to renew its operating license with some proposed changes. We'll talk about those changes a little bit later. Eagle has issued previous licenses to this facility to store and treat hazardous waste back in 2007 and then 1999. This facility is located along North I-94 Service Drive in Belleville. So for those, if you're on the phone, it's just east of Van Buren Township, but it's also bounded by Willow Run Airport to the north, I-94 to the south, a few industrial facilities to the west, and then also a park to the east. The closest residents are about a quarter mile to the east and on the other side of the park. And Belleville Lake is about a half mile to the south. So Michigan Disposal did submit a renewal application in October 2016. This is a full year before their expiration date of 2017, which allows them to continue operating while Eagle is making a final decision on the application. As part of the completeness review, Eagle reviewed the application and sent comments to Michigan Disposal in August of 2017, at which they submitted responses back in September, October, and December. And then we reviewed that additional information and found that the application was still slightly deficient. So Eagle issued Michigan Disposal a second completeness notice of deficiency in October 2018. Michigan Disposal submitted more information for the application in November and December 2018. And then Eagle also notified individuals on the facility mailing list of our review actions in November 2018, which we do. So we finalized the completeness review and found that the application included all the required information. Now that the application is administratively complete, we're holding this meeting tonight to inform you of Michigan Disposal's site operations, their proposed changes, and to give you an opportunity to ask questions. So Michigan Disposal is licensed to store and treat hazardous waste and non-hazardous waste. The facility does hold a solid waste license through Part 115. It's a solid waste license. We're not going to be talking about that tonight, but if you do have questions about that, we are more than happy to get you in contact with the permitting engineer through the solid waste program. They're able to store and treat both characteristic and listed waste, and incompatible waste are separated within licensed storage areas. The storage happens in both containers and tanks, and then while treatment happens in just tanks. The primary method of treatment is stabilization. So here is a map of their footprint. You have the two main treatment buildings, or actually only treatment buildings. You have the west and east treatment building. The north container storage area is to the north with the silos or tank farm sandwiched in between. Just immediately to the east, you have the east container storage area. And then further to the east, you have the southeast container storage area, which we'll talk about a little bit later, but will include a proposed expansion to their physical footprint. So to their main operations, their west and east treatment buildings. Treatment occurs in 8 rectangular in-ground steel tanks constructed within concrete vaults, which provide secondary containment. They can store containers, which can be staged in front of the tanks prior to the contents being placed into the treatment tanks. And then also emissions from processing the waste in the treatment buildings are captured and goes through an air pollution controls. Both buildings are under negative pressure, which essentially means that outside air is being pulled into the building, so air can't escape. There's also a baghouse that captures any particulates. And then in the East Treatment Building, there's a thermal oxidation unit, which allows for the treatment of just different material. So the North Container Storage Area, which is number 3, just north of the West and East Treatment Buildings. This area is enclosed by a roof, surrounding walls, and a concrete floor, which is treated with a chemical resistant product, and water stops in the floor joints. The floor drains capture any spills that may occur during operations, and this design prevents any spills from leaving the storage area. This area is also used to store untreated and treated waste, and additional requirements are needed for storing treated waste in this area. So it's not commonly done, but when it is, waste bulking and consolidation can be done in this area. They have to follow their waste analysis plan, and then they also run an air ventilation system, which is in place for that specifically. They're also allowed to store ignitable and reactive waste in this area for transshipment. Just means that they're storing it in one area, but it's really being moved to another facility. It's not staying on site. So the East Containment Area, it's located outside, just east of the treatment buildings. It also includes a tank farm. Think of this as like a number of bulk tanks that store liquid hazardous waste and secondary containment. There's a lot of them in one area, so it's called a tank farm. The containers there's a separate section for reactive waste. This area also has sloped concrete flooring with secondary containment, trenches, and an isolated sumps to prevent any spills. The Southeast Container Storage Area is outside and further to the east, so it's number 6 on this map. This area can hold both container storage for drums and roll-up boxes. All containers must be covered while in this area and remain closed, even when they're being transported from one area to another. This area does have a separate section to hold liquid hazardous waste from solid hazardous waste. So this is a little bit different. Liquid hazardous waste has what we call free liquid. So if I was to tilt a container, liquid would freely run out, whereas solid waste, you wouldn't have any free liquid. So the liquid hazardous waste area does have special secondary containment that's designed to capture any spills. So the silo, which is number 5, the tank farms, there are no proposed changes to any of the storage capacities for any of the tanks. They do have 6 steel vertical tanks in this area, and they hold either solid waste or reagents. Easy. So environmental monitoring, they have 2 programs. They have a groundwater monitoring and ambient air. Groundwater monitoring is a detection monitoring program which utilizes chemical monitoring of groundwater, basically to detect any potential releases to the groundwater. It's conducted on a quarterly basis. They do submit those reports to us and they are evaluated. And they sample for contaminants such as PCBs, volatile organic compounds, also known as VOCs, metals, and inorganics. The ambient air program, there are 7 monitoring stations around the facility, not just Michigan Disposal, but also Wayne Disposal. So it's a shared program with Wayne Disposal. So if you remember seeing the footprint of Michigan Disposal, it was inside Wayne Disposal. The monitors actually go around the entire perimeter of Wayne Disposal. They also sample for volatile organic compounds, once again, VOCs, PCBs, or metals. So now that we've talked about the existing operations, what are they going to do? What are they proposing to do in the future? So the north container air storage area and east container storage area, they are proposing to increase the number of containers that are stored in these areas. So in the north container storage, they're proposing to move from 82,500 gallons to 177,320 gallons. The east container storage area, they're proposing to increase that capacity from 33,000 gallons to 104,702 gallons. And so, as I mentioned before, the southeast container storage area is a little bit different, how they can store both liquid hazardous waste and solid hazardous waste. So they're also proposing to expand the physical footprint, which we've seen before, so both 6 and 7. And the liquid hazardous waste are proposing to increase from 80,795 gallons to 240,240 gallons. And then for solid hazardous waste, they're proposing to increase their capacity from 900 cubic yards to 4,440 cubic yards. So there are other proposals. They are proposing to increase their treatment capacity from 576,000 gallons per day to 780,124 gallons per day. But then they are also asking to be able to treat additional waste types. The first is the reactive sulfide. The second is hazardous waste containing dioxin. So the dioxin would be below land disposal restriction levels, which is important to know. So what are the next steps? Next step is a technical review. So now that we have a complete application, we're moving on to the technical review. So remember that this is more like the quality check of the information. This will include a closer look at the proposal, evaluating against the rules and the technical guidance. We do that in consultation with the EPA, other EGLE staff, and we also go out and do field verification ourselves. Are what they're proposing accurate? We want to make sure we get the information correct. So after EGLE completes the technical review, we'll invite you to another meeting to discuss our findings. And while all this is happening, we're still going to provide oversight of the facility operations. That doesn't stop just because we're reviewing their application. So now I'll actually hand it over to Al to discuss compliance.
Thanks, Christine. My name's Al Taylor. I'm the Hazardous Waste Section Manager for EGLE. And I'm actually filling in here tonight for the Warren District Supervisor, Tracy Kexcometti, who couldn't be here with us. So how do we assess compliance? We have a number of different things that we do. We do routine inspections at the facility. Michigan Disposal would get 4 routine, pretty detailed, comprehensive inspections every year by the district inspector. They also get other inspections by Lansing staff from the hazardous waste program staff. There's the review of required submittals, the operating license that they're currently under, and has a number of submittals they have to provide on their operation. And these include environmental monitoring data that's required to be collected. As Christine noted, there's ambient air monitoring associated with this facility, and also groundwater data. They have a detection monitoring program for the facility. And there's, of course, response to complaints. One of the things that, just as an example, for environmental monitoring data, EGLE also conducts what we call split sampling occasionally. Every year, Wayne Disposal and Michigan Disposal have a combined groundwater monitoring program, and we will collect water samples from the wells in order to submit them to the EGLE lab in order to verify the results that Michigan Disposal is getting through their environmental monitoring lab. Next slide, please. Okay, so how do we address violations? As you probably are aware, hazardous waste management is highly regulated federally and at the state level. There is a lot going on, and Violations are occasionally identified. It's not unusual to find violations of varying levels, ranging from paperwork up to more serious violations. So how do we deal with these? We have something called a progressive enforcement strategy. These start out at the low end as informal, and that's used for minor or quickly corrected violations, such as a minor paperwork violation. We can send different types of communications, the least of which is the compliance communication, and that can grade into a violation notice, which requires corrective action and to fix the identified violation. And if done promptly, it would not result in a penalty. If it is something more egregious, we would go with a formal enforcement action, and that's used for significant violations or violations that require a longer term corrective action or fix for the problem. In this case, we would typically enter an administrative consent order, which has an enforceable schedule to complete the corrective action and usually includes a monetary penalty for the violation. Next slide, please. So just as a kind of an example of what kind of compliance actions the Materials Management Division has taken recently within the last 3 years or so at Michigan Disposal. In March, we entered an administrative consent order for failure to submit a renewal application on time for the solid waste license. That was resolved. Sorry, Christine, we did end up talking about the solid waste operating license. In May of 2019, a violation notice was issued for failure to submit some air monitoring data as required. Basically, that data went to the wrong part of EGLE, which is a fairly large agency, and there are specific requirements for where the data is supposed to go so someone can look at it promptly and make an evaluation. In September, there's a compliance communication of 2018, a compliance communication. An inspection violation identified some used light bulbs that were improperly labeled. That was resolved. And finally, February of 2018, there was a violation notice issued for the failure to prevent a small unanticipated fire in a treatment tank that did not result in a release to the environment. However, any thing like that, any unexpected reaction is unacceptable, and we have a resolution that is pending. Next slide, please. So at this point, I'm going to kick it back to Kimberly Tyson.
All right. Thanks, Christine and Al. Good information on the application, the review process, and EGLE oversight activities. If you want to stay informed of EGLE actions regarding the application, please subscribe to our facility mailing list, and you can do that through michigan.gov/EGLE Connect, or you can also email Miss Vicki Terry at terryv2@michigan.gov, or give her a call at 517-284-6546. And you can also give Christine Matlock a call or email at matlockc2@michigan.gov or 517-290-4612. Next slide. So tonight we talked a lot about the application. And so if you want to read it, please go to michigan.gov/US Ecology MDWTP, or you can, the application is available at our Lansing headquarters or Warren District Office. But please be aware, right now the state offices are currently closed due to the COVID restrictions. So we're not sure when that, I guess, restriction would lift for us. So I would just encourage you to call ahead if you want to review the application in person. And again, please contact Ms. Vicki Terry terryv2@michigan.gov or 517-284-6546. If you want to visit the Warren District Office, please contact Ms. Jennifer Block at blockj4@michigan.gov or 517-753-3833. I'm thinking that might be a different area code on there, but give Miss Terry a call and she can help you out as well. Okay. All right, so let's go to questions. And we have our panel here. Now, if you have a question that we can't answer right now tonight, just note that we will take it down and we'll go back and do some research and reach out to you with an answer.
All right, thanks, Kimberly. I'm gonna go ahead and have our panelists go ahead and turn your cameras on because we're gonna go through some Q&A right now. Just want to remind our attendees that if you have a question, you can type it into the question box, the Q&A box on your Zoom toolbar. Go ahead, type it in there. You can also click the raise hand icon, and if you click the raise hand icon, we'll call on you, and you can unmute your microphone. We'll allow you to unmute, and you can ask your questions. So we've got a big team here of Eagle staff ready to answer your questions. Don't be afraid to type them in. That's what we're here for today, is to get your questions answered. So I'll be reading them off, and we'll see. We'll try to do our best to answer those questions.
All right.
So we've already got a question that came in, Kimberly. The first person's saying, we're asking, will the proposed expansion also increase the capacity of the facility to treat and manage Part 115 waste? So can you also explain what a Part 115 waste is for our attendees?
Well, that would be a solid waste. I guess more like waste that you would put in your garbage can at home would be considered more like solid waste. But under the proposal for the hazardous waste license, we're not automatically expanding the capacity to treat or store more solid waste at the facility. If they want to do that, they will have to apply under that program's requirement. But under the hazardous waste program, we're not automatically increasing the capacity to do that.
Okay, thanks. So yes, looking at my questions, I don't really have a lot of questions here. So I'm assuming maybe most people are here just to listen in and get some information from you all. I do want to note that if you haven't noticed it already, in your chat box, in your chat button, if you click on that in your toolbar, Christine Grossman here at Eagle has typed in a lot of helpful information, the links to the websites, how to get connected to the different information associated with this site. And oh, we got a correction here. Jennifer Block, you had mentioned earlier. Let me bring that slide up. I think it was right here. Yes. Jennifer Block's phone number is actually 586-753-3833. So her area code, that's her area code right there. 586, not 517. Can't believe we missed that. And I'm going to bring up two. Let's see here. Staying connected. Just have that slide up there. Waiting to see if anybody's got any more questions, because I'm really surprised when I'm more. I don't know if Al or Kimberly, have you got any frequently asked questions that you'd want to address or that you didn't present in your presentation while we're waiting?
Not that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, none that come to mind, but one of the things that I'd like to point out is that this is a bit of a new process for us. We are, based on feedback we've gotten in previous licensing processes, we were informed that the public really doesn't appreciate finding out about a operating license being reviewed and a decision being made on that license, or a potential decision being made on that license, until the public comment period, formal public comment period starts. So one of the things that Eagle is doing here is we're significantly expanding our public participation process by adding in the opportunity to understand what's happening at the administratively complete portion of the application and review process, and then later at the technical adequacy portion of the application review process. That way, we believe that gives the public a much greater, much better idea of what actually is being proposed by the licensee and what our process is to review that application. That way, when we get to the formal 60-day public comment period, if we determine that that is appropriate and we have a draft license application for comment, then folks that have been involved in the process have had multiple opportunities to look at the operating license application, ask questions of the engineers and scientists that are involved in the review of that, and hopefully we'll have a more informed public comment period, and folks participating in that will feel like they have a better understanding of what is being proposed, because we do think that is important.
Yeah, thanks, Al. I appreciate that explanation. And I have kind of a follow-up question to what you just were talking about. So tonight we have like a public information meeting, just some basic details of what's going on. When would you expect, and thinking about next steps, when would it go to like the actual public comment? And where we do the hearings, the comment process where the public's out to comment, and how will people know when that happens?
Okay, well, that's a great question. That kind of goes to our stay informed slide that's coming up. Yep, right there, staying connected. So we would really appreciate folks to subscribe online through michigan.gov /EagleConnect, or you can email us, terryv2@michigan.gov, or give her a call at 517-284-6546. And any questions you have, please reach out to our permit engineer, Ms. Christine Matlock, who gave the bulk of the presentation, at matlockc2@michigan.gov, or you can call her at that number. Christine is our clearinghouse for any questions that we'll get. And if she doesn't have the answer to your question, she will identify the appropriate engineer, scientist, or public affairs person that needs to respond, and you'll get a prompt response.
Right. And so, we talked about that subscription list that we brought up. Yeah, if you get on that, then you'll be notified when the hearing begins. It'll also be posted on the website that we've established. There's a link to that in the chat that you have in front of you.
Yeah.
Again, one more follow-up that's we'd like to know about is how is the formal public comment period different from the informational meetings? So how's that going to be different when we do that?
I'm going to ask our permit and corrective action unit manager or chief to handle that, please, Kimberly.
So what would be different? So in the informal meetings, we can have more of an exchange or back and forth. You can ask a question, we can answer, and so we can have that back and forth. But during the formal comment period, meaning I guess I'm taking this to be during the formal public hearing, where we just receive comments and then we take them back and we answer them in what is like a responses summary document prior to, I guess, making our final decision on the application.
All right. Well, thanks, Kimberly and Al. I don't see any more questions coming into my question box. So that doesn't mean we have to drag this out any longer. So, we can wrap it up. I want to let everybody know that we did record it. So if you want to watch it later or forward on to somebody that might have missed it, they can see it. You got Christine Matlock's email up there. Again, like Al was saying, she's the main person to go to. So if you're not sure who to send it to Christine Matlock, and she'll get it to the right person if you have a question after tonight. Al or Kimberly, do you guys got any closing remarks?
The
I would
only thing,
just-
sorry, Kimberly. The only thing that I wanted to, I realized I didn't answer all of your question, Jim. We have a completeness review done now, and now we'll enter into the technical adequacy form of it, and that could take up to 6 months or more to complete that portion of the review. So I would anticipate that another meeting like this, once we get through the technical portion, will be about 6 months out from where we are right now.
Okay, yeah, that's good. So it's a little ways out yet. So as always usually happens when I start to wrap up, we get questions in. So, and there is a slight delay, I know, and people type their questions in when I get them. So we did have a 1 minute. It's kind of lengthy, but I'm going to read it off to this team here. And, Kimberly, you can decide who'd be best to answer this. And I'll read it as it came in. It says, this particular facility expanded its footprint of its hazardous waste landfill a couple years ago. And now it seems it's expanding its storage and processing. When Al listed the 4 violations, are we to believe all but one was clerical? Were neighbors told when the fire happened? And what about the quarterly water samples and any violations there? And outside storage, areas 4 and 6, how are they ensuring keeping the containers from any number of things that can happen? As far as public participation, it's difficult to imagine how to come up with questions when little notice is given when the presentation is breezed by in 20 minutes. So kind of a lot to unpack there. They're also asking why it's called MI Michigan Disposal. So Kim, do you want to go through a couple of these kind of piece by piece here? This question that was brought in by this attendee, first of all, related to the, I guess, the 4 violations and some being clerical, and that.
Well, in terms of the violation, I'll speak to that. But also keep in mind, please, you can give us a call, Christine, or you can call me, and we can, talk to you about, your questions. So feel free to give us a call. Don't think that this is your only opportunity to, get your questions answered. And so please, take advantage of that opportunity. In terms of the notifications, I'm not sure when you got the notification, but that is a good point. Perhaps we could, I guess, start our process a little sooner so that we can ensure that the notifications arrive, a little bit sooner, so that people will have the opportunity to participate.
I'm looking here. So when we're talking about, part of that question too was, it says, were the neighbors told when the fire happened? And so can you break that up along with the quarterly water samples? Or were there any violations there?
Okay, so were the neighbors notified?
Of the fire.
Okay, the fire.
It said, were neighbors told when the fire happened?
Well, if it was a fire that didn't, I guess, impact resources outside of the facility boundaries, then no, we didn't notify.
Okay, wondering about the quarterly water samples. Have there been any violations on the water samples, quarterly water samples?
I'm not
This is
sure.
Joe. No, we haven't had any issues with the groundwater monitoring. So there's been no indications of any releases from the facility in the groundwater sampling.
Okay, what about violations of the outside storage, areas 4 and 6? Kimberly, you're muted.
I was trying to figure out what is 4 and 6. Can we get the picture back up?
Yeah, I can bring it back up for you guys here. It might take a minute. Christine Matlock, can you bring it up on yours and you can share yours because you know right where it is. So I'll let you bring it up. While we're going to that, can you guys explain why you're calling it Michigan Disposal?
Well, early on, I believe Christine said that she was just shortening the name so that it'll be easier for her to get through the discussion. Because saying Michigan Disposal Waste Treatment Plant over and over and over was probably a little difficult. So
All right, that makes sense. So they're not renaming their facility. That's what we're calling it for tonight. Okay. And
I might say something about the
yeah, go ahead.
contacting the community after the violation notice for that fire sent out was out in 2018. Van Buren Township and Wayne County are copied on that letter. They got it along with the facility, so they were certainly aware of it in their official capacity.
This is Al. Just to clarify, Van Buren Township, Van Buren Fire was required and responded to the facility to ensure that the facility fire suppression system had put the fire out, and to conduct their investigation of it. They take these kinds of events extremely seriously as well, and we coordinated with them to ensure that it was safe to let operations resume at the facility after an investigation and some downtime to verify that the facility could function safely to continue to manage hazardous waste, and that the fire suppression system had been restored to full functional capacity. So they, neighbor, and not necessarily a neighbor, but they are our local responders in that area. So they're certainly aware of it at the time of the fire suppression system activation.
All right, thanks Al for clarifying that. Going back to, looks like Christine's got the site map up. Thank you, Christine. So going back to the outside storage areas, they're asking areas 4 and 6. How are they keeping the containers from any number of things that can happen? So are there any violations that have happened related to outside storage? And how is Eagle ensuring that keeping containers from having things happen to them?
Mike,
Okay,
any violations in areas 4 and 6, which is the east container storage area and the southeast container storage area?
not within the last 4 or 5 years. The last one they had in 6 was that this goes back to the time where they had a thermal desorption unit functioning in pretty much 6 and 7 areas, and they had they had a lot of material they were moving around, and they had inadvertently stored an open container of a process waste in the area. The violation was that it was open. They corrected that by basically sending me the analysis that it was not hazardous. It was still a violation to be open, even as a liquid industrial waste or byproduct, as it's called currently. And that was it. The area 4, the east container storage area, haven't had problems with that, and that I can recall. I'm an inspector, not a historian. If there's anything, certainly people are welcome to do a FOIA of our records, and they can go back as far as we have records on the facility. They could use our waste data system as a guide. There's a public facing version of that that they can access through our Eagle webpage under the waste section. But in terms of how to, the physical protection of these things, well, we have established traffic flows, certain areas where things don't go. Certain types of, all containers have to be Department of Transportation approved, which gives them some resilience to accidental bumps and drops. They have a cracks and gaps repair program of all surfaces, concrete or asphalt. They do daily inspections of these areas for things like this, including conditions of containers. When they're working in an area, they put up safety tape. They have regular training of their forklift and internal transportation drivers, and safety talks concerning not just hazardous waste, but a variety of occupational safety and health issues. And they understand the seriousness of ruptured or containers that aren't up to standards. They are prepared if the generator, who is less than diligent about what they send them, sends a container in poor condition or even anticipated poor condition. They have overpacks that they can put those in. They have spill kits staged in the area. They've done as more than a reasonable job of anticipating types of accidents. They also have quite a few fire extinguishers in the facility. And I think Christine mentioned that in the tank treatment sections, they have a dedicated foam generator, but they have portable ones that they can use in the entire facility. And they put strategic posts and barriers in certain areas, and they guide all truck drivers, outside truck drivers that move through these areas to make sure they have spotters observing all these activities where they move containers here and there, including roll-off boxes, which they do get a variety of. So they've instituted these things, and these are reasonable safeguards for protection of these containers while they're in their care. And they do try to process these things as quickly as possible, so they're not around for anything damages might come along. If they're not there to be damaged, then there's no damage. So they process these things as quickly as they can. As a business decision, it makes sense. They need to move the stuff through so they can get the next set in, but they have to process the stuff properly. This is why they have areas like the North Container Storage Area, because that's for maybe longer term storage. If they have if they don't have enough of a particular type of waste for a particular type of treatment, they will store it there, including a transshipped waste if they do have those. So they take all these precautions, and including the training and the safety equipment and a contingency plan, and drills. They run drills on these things, so they are prepared for these types of situations.
Hey, Kimberly, as part of the formal licensing process, we're required to, or our procedure is to develop a compliance summary for the operating license period. So one of the questions that we've got, is kind of focusing on, one of the things that we will be doing as we move through this process is developing and putting that compliance summary out on our website to reflect the last period of operation under the existing operating license. So we will, folks that are concerned with the violation history of the facility will have that to look to and to ask further questions.
Yes, yes.
Okay. Sorry, I answered the question after I asked it. I apologize.
Nice job, Al. All right. So one thing that was mentioned here, I think Mike, you mentioned it, was our waste data system. That can be accessed, and that's got all the information you'd want to know about the facility too. Christine put in the chat a link to the waste data system that you can access. It explains how to access it. Somebody had mentioned that it wasn't working, but it looks like here you got to make sure you type in the whole address or copy it and paste the whole address in there. We can follow up after this meeting too with these direct links as well to make sure that everybody's got the correct links that they need in case you didn't get it out of the chat. All right. Well, not seeing any more questions here, team. So I'm going to let Kimberly or Al, do you have any concluding remarks, I guess? I'm going to bring the screen back to me while we're doing that.
Well, I would just like to thank everyone for spending this time with us to learn more about the license application and Eagle's review process. And please go to our website, look at the application, and if you have any questions, please feel free to give Christine a call, or you can contact me as well. And so with that, if there's nothing else, again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a good evening.
All right, thanks everybody. Just to remind you, this we recorded this and we post on the YouTube channel. We'll follow up with some links after the meeting to those of you that we have your email addresses for, because you signed up. So if we have your email, we'll send you a follow up with some more details after this meeting. Thanks to our team here at Eagle for joining us, and thank you for being an attendee tonight and spending some of your evening to learn more about this activity going on and how Eagle interacts with it. Thank you all very much and have a great rest of your evening. Thank you.